Good morning, everybody. Apologies for that. Hopefully everybody can see my screen because that was the reason I had to pop away to go do it. So, citizens first in a no-code era. What I'm going to talk about is lots of things today, but a lot of focus on making sure services are really great for citizens to use, but also empowerment. So a key theme of these slides is around the empowerment, not just of citizens, but the empowerment of your staff, and being able to do things without code, because technology should be an enabler. It shouldn't be the thing that stops you from achieving the things you want. And so today you'll be glad to know we're not going to talk about staying at home or staying alert. I'm going to try and stay away from all of that stuff and focus upon doing new stuff. So I'm John McMahon. I'm the product director for IEG4, geek extraordinaire, and I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what our focus is at the moment and how we're working and what we think the future of digital and delivery of services in councils looks like. So to start off with, I thought it would be useful for the benefit of people to talk about what no code is. So what is no code? Well, you probably need to have it set in the context of the two alternatives, which are code and low code. So if we do our standard diagram, which compares the three of them, it looks something like this, or it looked something like this in 2015. So several years ago, code was not easy to use. You had to become a developer. You had to learn how to do things, but it's crazy flexible, right? So you can do tons of stuff with it. Low code, things like Power Automate, Microsoft services, there's lots of other low code solutions out there. They are more flexible, but you kind of still need to know code. And they're not so easy unless you're an advanced business analyst at the very least. And then you have no code. And no code is about saying, okay, you work in customer services and you want to build a service that does something, integrates to a system, integrates to multiple systems, and you want to do that yourself. You want to do it by Friday. You don't want to have to go through a huge change control process. You want to do it in a standardized way that anybody can achieve the same things. So it's a platform-based approach, but it's also no code. And where we see no code going is we see both it and low code increasing, but no code taking over as people realize there's no value in investing in content or products which don't enable everybody to be able to achieve things. So it's about putting that thing into the upper right-hand corner or vector of the diagram so that no code, delivering things with business people, service users, can be achieved, and it can be highly flexible as well. So we think that's an imminent thing that's happening. My slides are taking a little while. That's what you get for being fancy. So, no code. I'm going to walk through some examples, but no code is largely about taking advantage of robo-waiters. And people will be thinking, who is this crazy person? What are they talking about? But robo-waiters is this amazing description or visual infographic on what an API is. So it's largely about taking advantage of APIs. And APIs are these horrible things from a non-technical perspective that it's not really obvious or intuitive what they are. But this diagram, I think, it explains it really well. It allows two systems to speak to one another, and they're like little robo-waiters that take and deliver some information about a service to another. So Google's Maps API gives you a map if you ask it for one. And the little robo-waiter comes from one service from Google Maps to your application to deliver it. An Instagram API, funnily enough, delivers images. So no code is largely about taking advantage of these. So taking advantage of something which is technical, but hiding that behind all of the technical stuff that where it needs to be and enabling people with no technical skills to be able to take advantage of it. And I think, just because I added this at the last moment, I just wanted to give you an insight into something that we're doing as a company, and that is creating this almost energy rating score for APIs for every single back office provider across every single service. So this is mainly just to give you a bit of a sneak peek into that, because we're going to be issuing that so that people can, you know, it will be an open source document, and I would want other companies and so forth to feed into it. But it's basically to illustrate for council tax, waste, business rates, housing, whatever the department is, what is the best back office service provider at delivering upon those types of APIs. So that's a little sneak peek into that. But the examples, because there's nothing better than examples, the examples that we're going to show today span 6 separate areas. And these examples are automation, so automatically updating a back office system, payments, appointments and bookings. So you still want to take payments, even though everything's virtualized in your offices and so forth. Appointments and bookings, now more than ever, have become more relevant because you need people to schedule when they come in so that you can make sure everything's COVID secure. I saw an example West Berkshire did where people could book when they came to the tip and make sure that you don't have massive queues like we have in Bristol. So the next one I'm going to talk about is geolocation, case management, and a citizen view. And these are all different back office systems and simply examples of the sorts of things that you can do with no code. So without further ado, I will give you a walk through some of these. So Cambridge City Council, empty homes bonus, a new homes bonus rather, a thing that all councils need to do is review whether they have, whether the property that was previously empty is still empty. And councils more and more are penalising people for having an empty property by having things like council tax premiums, where the cost of the council tax is actually 50% more, 100% more. And I found out recently of a council that's charging 200% of the charge extra. And so they're obviously penalizing people for having an empty property so that they eventually sell it or do something with it, which means it's not empty. But one of the things that is vital is that you actually canvass all of the people whose properties are empty in order to determine whether they still are empty. And what Cambridge City Council did is they said to us, we want to do this. We have literally thousands of these. It's obviously a university city, so there's lots of landlords that rent flats out to students and so forth, which means if people aren't going to university, there's a lot of properties empty. So one of the things that they wanted to do was to send out this canvas across thousands of people, and they didn't want to have to manually deal with the outcomes of those those forms being returned back. So they built an online form, and using no code, they were able to automate their data updates directly into their Northgate system. So not only did that mean that they didn't have some human going in, typing away all of the data into the back office council tax system, it also meant that the council had a better chance of maximizing its new homes bonus because it would have all of the data in time. So in this case, the data is going directly into Northgate's back office system. So what they did, using a function called a mapping designer, and by the way, this is not a plug for our product, it's basically to illustrate how no-code stuff works. It just happens that this is how it was done. So the first thing that they did is they said, well, we want to update the back office communication stuff and we want to update the notepad. These are just the names that they created for the updates that they wanted to do. And then basically what you can do is you can say, okay, if I want to update Northgate, what data does Northgate need for this type of update? So you tell it that, and then you click on each of the different pieces of content you want to map to the back office, press save, and that form has now learned how to create a file that will automatically post to their API, the robot waiter, when the form gets submitted. So that is a real life use case where they needed to deal with something, deliver something relatively fast in order to save the huge amount of rework that would be required. And they did it with no code. And I think if you can update back office APIs with no code, pretty much all of the other use cases are going to be relatively simple by comparison. So another example, a different platform this time, which is payments. is Lambeth Council wanted to digitise, because obviously people couldn't come in and collect their copies of birth certificates and death certificates and so forth. They digitized their registrar's function, and this was all set up with no code. So all of the questions that they would normally ask, but importantly, the ability to actually say how it should update Capita, Capita's payment system. Other payment systems are able to be integrated with like this, such as gov.uk Pay, for those of you that want to be forward-thinking and platform-based. And all they literally needed to do was say, well, how much is the value of the certificates that are associated? How much is the cost of the certificates? What fund code, what reference should be passed to the back office payment system? That's it. The rest of the stuff is automatically done. The automatic navigation to the payment system, the redirect back to the online form, all of that is handled with no code. And it means that people can deliver services rapidly for loads of different use cases without needing IT. IT should be doing technical stuff, not stuff like this. So the next one is bookings. So I said before that there's multiple use cases of doing, taking bookings and so forth. And one of the things that we found recently, and it is a new service from Microsoft, is when we were considering how should councils provide a digital service which natively interacts with back office calendars, I always felt that it was really messy to say, okay, well, what I want to do is I want to link this calendar to like a group calendar or to Nick Hill's calendar in Outlook. And the reason being is because there's loads of stuff around the sensitivity of what might be in there. People go off sick, all of that sort of stuff where it's not centralized and there's a problem. So what Microsoft have done, if they've created a bookings function, which allows any council with Office 365 certain version, if you have Teams, you'll have this. It means that you can create a service like pest control, like we've got in here, and you can set up loads of things. You can say what the service is. You can say which officers, so which office Outlook calendar should be linked to this, basically. You can set up reminders for the citizen before it. You can say what the standard prices is and all of that sort of stuff. So Microsoft Bookings takes away the hassle of knowing what people's individual calendars are. And because it has the ability through Office 365 to integrate to them, you simply need to say who the officers are and what the service is. And then when you go in to create your online form, you would add a bookings option, as you can see here. You would select the service that you want to deliver it through, add some extra stuff, and that's the stuff which is the secret sauce, which I'm not going to show in the content today. But basically, in this booking where the person's setting up a pest control application, that rat extermination item, very cruel, I would never, suggest you do that, but pest control does do that. But basically, the £50 that it's showing is going to integrate to gov.uk Pay in this case, and the section below is native API integration, robot waiter from Microsoft coming this time, telling us that these are the appointments available, and that has been deduced based upon the availability of all of the officers that are linked to it. When the relevant appointment is selected, that automatically updates the relevant person's calendar, the next person that's due to or free at that time. So it's super, super powerful, a better user interface than the less mobile responsive things that you might have if you go into a separate booking system. And it can be used for tons of stuff. So the stuff on the right-hand side are just examples. I'm sure you guys know what people can book stuff with, but I think it's all the more important now when most things are virtual. When you've done that, this is just an example of how it would automatically update a calendar across a service. So the next one that I'm going to talk about is sort of a hybridized no-code function. And what I mean by that is that it's a no-code function to Bing Maps, but it also integrates to other systems to overlay data onto that. So one of our partners, Yotta, they provide asset management system, crazy modern, deals with waste, potholes, highways, street lights, all of that stuff. It's an API-based system. If you've got an asset management system, I strongly advise you to go have a look at Yotta Alloy. It's just night and day compared to everything else. But basically what they do is because they've got a super powerful API, what we've done is we've made it so that a council can say, I want to add potholes to my map. And literally all they're doing is putting in the code as it's held in Yotta Alloy into our citizen portal, and all of the potholes are instantly represented on the map so that customers don't report the same things. And they can actually see all of the details, such as there is a massive hole in the road. And as the status changes in Alloy, that is automatically fed into the citizen account, again with no code. So basically, from a council's perspective, they're saying, this is my Yotta system. These are the things, fly tipping, graffiti, whatever. These are the things that are held in Alloy that I want to show. And it automatically renders all of them onto the map so that people don't report the same things twice, so that people know that the council's on the case if it's outside their door, for example. And this also extends to being able to do things like strategic planning and strategic works reviews. So the council could say, I want to show all of the geometric shapes which show where all the roadworks are going to happen in the next year, so that you can get feedback and do consultations. All of that stuff, no code. And so that's integration with Bing Maps. And I've got another example in the area of local community services coming later. So I'm going to take a little breath there. The next thing is lots of councils have already invested in Microsoft Dynamics 365. And so they don't want to change to, let's just say, maybe more modern systems. But so they've already made that investment, and Brent Council has recently done this. And as a part of some work that we did with them, we've created a no-code mechanism for online forms to be pre-populated, which you can see here. This is Brent's brand new Dynamics portal. And this is one of our online forms being opened and launched with it. Again, no code was involved from a council setting it up perspective. And then when that is completed, that automatically adds a copy of the form and any evidence uploaded directly back to the timeline in Microsoft Dynamics for the council view of the case. So a case gets generated, notes get added, all documentation gets added, and this will work for any form. So if you have an online form builder like we have, which has got over 1,000 online forms, and you have Dynamics, every single one of them can be fully integrated to Dynamics with no code. And that's really about a step change of saying, a lot of the time when councils implement a service like Dynamics, they build it up very, very slowly, department by department. With this type of functionality, it means that if you have Dynamics, you can basically go from 10 online forms and online services integrated to 1,000 overnight. So that's Microsoft Dynamics. Hopefully that was interesting to anybody that has Dynamics. And then the final one that I'm going to talk about, the final of the 6, is I think probably the most powerful. And Civica Open Revenues is literally just an example of a back office system here. So up to now, we've really focused on online services where the person's transacting, so they're doing something. Maybe not the pothole one, but largely. And in this example, what we're actually going to look at is a council being able, with no code, to be able to change and manipulate the content that they show in a citizen account from a back office system. Now, some back office systems are easier to integrate with than others. This one is particularly tricky. Almost like they didn't want to integrate with it. But basically, we provide an interface. Again, I'm trying not to plug our products. I'm just trying to say this is how people should be thinking about it. Is we provide a mechanism where the council can see all of the data that's come from the back office system. So we've sent our robot waiters out. They've went away, they've got all of the data from the back office system, and we've said, well, these are all of the things that you could show Mr. South Cambridge Council or Mrs. South Cambridge Council. These are all of the things that you could show. You can now choose which of that data that you want to show. Moreover, you can even use conditional logic. So you can say, if council tax recovery equals bailiff, show some content, but don't show that if it's not relevant. And that can be massively powerful, because one of the whole points of a citizen account is to channel shift, right? It's so that people don't need to phone, they want to actually do it digitally. And where so many citizen portals fail is they focus too much on asking the back office departments what do they want to have in their front office, instead of saying, what do people phone us about? Because if we can answer the questions about what people phone us about in the UI, then people won't phone us, because it will be vastly easier to achieve it through the digital medium. And if we're in control of all of the content with no code, it means we can follow GDS's best practice and iterate upon things and improve things over time. Now, the real pièce de résistance of this is that council tax, Civica Open Revenues is just one example here. Wouldn't it be cool if you had the same function for every single department and for every single type of back office? Well, as luck would have it, we've created that mechanism. But this is an example of South Cambridge, and this UI that you can see here, they created themselves. We didn't have to help them. They were able to do it themselves, fully taking data out of the back office system. They were even able to achieve something that their back office providers' own digital portal couldn't replicate. So back office supplier, their own portal could not achieve the level of functionality that council officers were able to achieve themselves. And that is the difference between code, low code, and no code. That second you enable council officers to be able to achieve something themselves is you rapidly start to increase the amount of UX and changes and iterative updates that are made to make the service better and make sure that people are doing everything digitally. So now I've talked about this, I talked about my 6 examples. I've got one example which is a more of an end-to-end scenario. So rather than I want to do something or I want to find out something, this is an example of a service which again Cambridge did. And what it is the council, so that you've got your Bing map or Google Maps in this case, collecting the data. Sorry, I should have said, this is a report graffiti issue. So they were saying where the issue is. They're saying whether it's offensive. They're saying whether it's on private land. They're saying whether it's high up, and they're providing an upload of it. So a simple 3-page online form which captures all of this stuff, or that might even be 1 page actually. And basically what we recently did, because we want to make, empower users vastly more and make this low code, no code stuff really leapfrog ahead of the other stuff, is up until last year, we only had the ability to do linear processes in terms of workflows. So council officer would get the first stage of the process might be review the report and deal with the graffiti. So a 2-stage process, and that's what the citizen could see. So I'm making an assumption that everybody knows and assumes that people can track the progress of stuff online. We've had that since 2016, but person submits the graffiti report, they can track online, they can see that it's currently on the review report stage, and there's a second stage which is deal with graffiti. Against each stage, you might say the SLA for that is 1 day. The user that should be assigned it, or the team, should be this team. It could be a third party, so it could be a contractor. It could be, and you might want to send notifications out. So you might want to send an email or a text message to say, thanks, we've got your report on the first step. And then on the second step, you might want to say, happy days, we've dealt with it, and send the customer a text message. All of that proactive messaging designed to stop people phoning you, to chase it up, basically. Now, what we wanted to do is make that vastly more powerful. Because if somebody reports graffiti and it's offensive, you might have a different SLA and a different team, a different contractor that deals with it, and a different message that you might want to send to people. Because you might want to say to somebody where it's offensive graffiti, you might want to send them a text message and tell them that it's going to be dealt with within the next, whatever your SLA is for it. And so that becomes crazy powerful because it can get much more complicated than that simplistic view. And I've taken advantage of where the process diagram arrows are to say that we love empowering people to do more. And to give you an example, this is Cambridge City's actual process. So is it on private land? Is it offensive? Is it over 2 meters? Is the council responsible? Have they booked a cherry picker? Because if it's over 2 meters, they have to do that. So the process becomes remarkably more complex, but they're able to deliver that with no code. And what they do is they map with no code the answers to these questions in order to set whether the process, how the process should be decided. So these decisions that you can see underneath, these are not being made by council officers. These are being automatically determined based upon the information that the citizen is providing through the online form. And all of that configuration and setup is set up by a user with no code. And I'm not going to labor this, but this is that wildly powerful, complex process that they created. And every one of the little steps that you can see is a step which can have a different SLA, a different user, a different notification sent, and something which I haven't talked about because I'm trying to stick us just to the no code view is with a little bit of code, you can actually call a different API on every single one of those steps. And that is actually what Cambridge are doing. So hopefully everybody knows what examples of no code is and how it works. So my next thing is, we talked about no code and now it's, well, how does that work in the context of Citizens First? So Citizens First is basically a thing that most people would know and assume, and every design company would work like this already. But councils typically have historically rather, they bought the right system at the right time. So you can't, you know, it's easy to say, why did an individual department buy a digital service for X 10 years later? Because at the time, it was probably the right thing at the right time and it enabled them to do things. But I believe that we're at this leapfrog moment. So there's a lot of councils that during the course of the last 6 months or so have realized that they need to go from not very digitally native to very digitally native. And in many ways, they're going to leapfrog their peers because they're going to have the benefit of going straight to the platforms that have the capabilities to do more. So Citizens First is about, and sorry, I should have said key part of what that slide was about. Citizens First is about Lego. It's about saying there's tons of things that a council does. A council does loads of services, but it also does notifications. It sends out bills. It sends out reminders. It sends out things to do with notifications. It takes payments. It allows people to find support. It gives support. It makes payments out to people for welfare and so forth. And that's especially relevant for businesses and people that have been furloughed and so forth. So you have to create a lot of platforms in order to deliver a truly citizen-first solution. And that is to say that the services are designed around a citizen and personalized to them, not designed around replicating back office data in the front office. So the first and the easiest way to sort of get this is there should be a single view of all back office data. And so I shouldn't have to log into a council tax portal or a housing portal or another portal. I should be able to go into a single view. And in the same place where I can find about my bin day, I can track the progress of a social care financial assessment. I can set up planning alerts. I should be able to do all of that in a single view. But the reason why I talked about Lego is it takes a long time, and the main reason digital transformation projects are not as successful as they could be is because of those robot waiters. you need to spend a huge amount of time building integration to lots of different back office systems to be able to even get to the point where you can give a single view of a council that's not just static data. Because so many my accounts in inverted commas are literally just a login to a separate area with some basic stuff coming through. In order to achieve a truly personalized citizen first experience, you need to be able to do everything across the whole council and be able to personalize it. So this is actually just the stepping stone for explanation. So let's just assume for a second, you've integrated to tons of different systems. So you've integrated to all of the different bins and waste systems. It's maybe not all of them. I've just put the main ones. You've integrated to benefits, business rates, council tax, landlords, housing. So all of the white squares are functions. The colored blobs on the outside are back office systems. So you've integrated to lots of different things. You've integrated to the payment systems, notification systems, OAuth, fraud, all of that stuff. You've done all of that stuff. Once you've done all of that hard work, then you can start seriously thinking about how can you create genuinely citizen-first solutions. So my account is something, like I said, which has existed for years, but it's never really been my account. It's been the council's account that you can log into. So now, as a part of a citizen-first approach, what we're saying is that you need to have done all of the Lego brickwork. You don't have to do it all overnight, but you do need to be able to allow people to personalize stuff. Because as we'll see when we talk about Generation Z, that's going to become all the more important. So person comes into their account, they can see this is what you can do, and you can personalize it based upon these areas in the screenshot that we've got here. And what that means is, if you've integrated to all of the back office systems, wouldn't it be cool if you could say, well, the only things I care about, the only things I give a crap about, being brutally honest, for 90% of the people that live in a council are going to be how much they pay on council tax and when their next bin day is. And that's going to be true for the bulk of people. So wouldn't it make sense if they could just say, I want to take just those bits of data and put it on my own dashboard? But equally, if I'm the type of person that really cares about my neighbor's extension, I could put a map showing planning applications on my dashboard. If I've applied for a blue badge, I might want to see what the status of that is on this dashboard, as well as maybe see what my other benefit payments are for housing benefit, for example. But I can see everything in a single view. And everything should be amazing on a phone. It should be better on a phone because 70% of people use phones or mobile devices, to use the more correct acronym. But on the right-hand side, this is the same content that you can see on the left, but it's been customized to reflect the fact that you've got a mobile, the amount of real estate that's present. So the person can slide with their thumb across the bin days. Less content is shown on the council tax to focus on the stuff that matters. And it actually enables even more content. So we've got housing, council tax, and bins data being represented from multiple back office systems in a single UI. And this is like a genuine leapfrog moment, because it's basically saying it doesn't matter what the back office system is, you can integrate with it, you can access it, but you can personalize all of that to yourself as well. And I kind of touched on this a minute ago, but in the same place that you can personalize all of that stuff, with people being out of work, with people needing support, with health and social care merging, becoming more and more the same thing, it makes sense that in the same place you can find out your bin day, you can also find out about services that might help you with anxiety because you've lost your job, or services that can help you keep fit because you aren't going outside so much because you're shielding, for example. So in the same place where people are able to access council tax and so forth, they can access a directory of services. And this directory of services, I don't know if anybody knows what a directory of services is, but they're hidden. Nobody knows about them. Like people, if I ask my wife or any of my friends, do they know what a council's directory of services is? Every one of them would say no. And it's because if you go to a council's website, They are not obvious. They are not easy to find. And this is about saying that they need to be in the same place as where you would do everything with a simple UI. I mean, this is obviously just an example of how you could do it, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 menu options, and that covers every service that the council delivers, the ability to submit every request, track every request, find out services, find out known issues in a single view. And it even extends, as we can see with the family and the friends and family option, for a carer to be doing this on behalf of multiple of their clients. So they can find out services. And the no-code part, which is coming soon, the no-code part is the ability to find results. So this person's looked for meals and cooking, and I've chosen the Vegan Society specifically because I am vegan, but basically this is a service that's been provided, no-code integration to Bing Maps, and they can find out, again with no-code integration with Bing Maps, how to get from their address to the location. So in this case, the person lives in Barry and they found a service up in Alderley Edge, where our offices are. And somebody changed the description that we can see here of the Vegan Society, because previously I made it, we eat beetroot burgers and lots of grass and stuff like that. So anyways, that is a look at why we think having everything in a single UI, putting citizens first, so not departments, you know, don't think about departments. Don't ask council managers in each of the services what they want. Ask citizens and ask your customer services staff. They will know and they will be able to help you design better services. And the last part here about the no-code integration of Bing Maps and so forth is about saying that a lot of people are very anxious and very the mental health of people has been affected as a consequence of the pandemic, and being able to have this sort of service fully embedded into an existing platform just makes sense. And I don't know what this last one is. Excellent, random slide. So the only thing I wanted to say here is, a minute ago, I actually remember now. So the last slide is basically saying, so this is about a single view of a council, but it's behind the wall. So a person signed in. This is just a tiny sneak peek about a future, because there isn't actually that much I can say about it. But I wanted to give you a sneak peek about something called the headless future. And it's not this. We are in the month of October, which means we're close to Halloween, but it's very much not about Sleepy Hollow Headless Horseman. And it's more about CMS stuff. So in a traditional CMS, you have the ability for a council officer to go in, type in some content, and that gets shown in a front end, which is also provided by the same system that provides the content management part. As we move forward, what we're going to see is much more movement to this. So right now, I don't think that there's a single council that has a headless CMS. However, it is definitely going to be the future of how it works. It's already happening in the private sector, which means that it's inevitable that it will come to the public sector. And that is that you have a back end which holds data. So if you think back to the fact that we already have a headless CMS, it's just that ours happens to be a citizen account, where a person can go in as a council officer and say, I want to show this council tax content, and it comes from a back office system. I want to show this housing content. So in the future, what you're going to have is this back end where you add content, you say what data from each back office system is there, as well as static content, which is all CMSs are comprised of right now. And that becomes and has an API to be able to speak to any front end. So if you guys decide you want to build an Alexa skill, that Alexa skill uses the exact same content that your website would have. It uses the exact same content if you build a smartphone app or an Apple Watch app if you want to help people record their health and well-being, and that actually feed into an action plan that's part of their digital account. So like I said, I'm not going to labor too much on that. It's very much a sneak peek, but the next generation expects everything on all devices, which means it's inevitable and it's a tangible reality that we need to start focusing on making everything, all of the content we have, able to be distributed to any device using our robot waiters. So, Generation Z. I thought it would be useful to explain a little bit about this. I'm going to read all of this, you'll be glad to know. But Generation Z is people that are born between 1995 and 2010. So that's the focus of today, or this section at least. Generation Y, millennial, I am extremely fortuitous. You wouldn't think it today because I badly need to have my beard trimmed and I look a little bit like Father Christmas. Generation Y, I was born in 1980, so I just scrape into Generation Y. But basically, the millennials and Generation Z are going by 2025 to become the biggest spenders, the largest cohort and users of digital services. And I'm crediting this to McKinsey and Company because this is great content that they have created. And this is just some of the explanation of that. So by 2025, the millennials, Generation Z will become the biggest spenders, and they're going to overtake Generation X, which is a ton of people that were born before 1980, basically. So getting to know Generation Z, I'm just focusing on a couple of things. I've got lots of infographics coming up. I'm not going to read them all out. But one of the biggest differences, so this is between me, a millennial, and Generation Z, people born after 1995, they use social networks even more. They use mobile even more than even people that are, between 40 and 25, 26 must be. They spend a huge amount of time on their phone. Now, this data is Asia Pacific, but it's still relevant. Australia and the UK are relatively the same in terms of demographics. But basically, Generation Xers, or the black circles, they're using less and less of the phone comparison. So if you think that you use your phone a lot, people that are younger than 25 are using it even more. And so the focus on mobile has to be at the top of our priorities. And then the thing I'm going to focus on here is that on the top left, you've got the number of devices that are being used a day. And for Generation Z, they're using on average 5 in a day and can multitask on all of them. I think that an important statistic is that 1 in 2 of Generation Z people will be university educated compared to 1 in 3 of my age group. And I think that that's inevitably going to mean higher expectations from citizens, completely digital native, digital savvy people. And it's going to be an expectation that every service, whether be it private or public, should be amazing. The next area that I'd like you to look at is in the bottom left quadrant, where it's talking about which social media things do people use. And Snapchat and Instagram are miles ahead of the others. And that's very much because, as we'll see, imagery, so images, videos, those are going to become the key ways of engagement with people in the future. And as you can see here, it sort of highlights that, but showing bite-sized content. And I hate criticizing gov.uk, the website, because a lot of people think it's really great, and for standards and accessibility it is, but from a design perspective, it's like excite.com from 1997. It's showing everything as a massive big shopping list when you go on, and people don't interact with services like that. It's like information overload. There's just too much choice. And I find that, and I think that as you become younger now, that low patience, immediacy of wanting data becomes even more important. They expect cross-channel content, so they expect everything to be delivered through all channels. They expect you to provide stuff in imagery. Give them full control, so don't make them have to do things different ways for different departments of a council. Do everything the same way. And I think that this one is really interesting because it highlights some of the stuff and why we have started working the way that we have, and certainly some product things that we've been doing. So what's Generation Z's preferred channel to engage? So their preferred channel is social media and messaging. So email, and I actually asked my niece this, who's about 13, she said that email is for dinosaurs. Email is for people that aren't her, or not anybody that's even remotely in her age bracket. They don't use email, they use messaging applications. And if we look, we can see that that has actually highlighted that Generation Z have never, some of, more of them than my age group, the millennials, have never bought something from an email that's been sent to them. This is just a pop quiz so that you can, I'm not going to ask you, you'll be glad to know, but these are loads of different messaging platforms. And do you know what they all are? I don't. I know that what many of them are, but basically what we're going to see is a genuine need and a focus on engagement with people to be more than just email. Nearly all councils interact with people in terms of notifications, at best through email, and in lots of cases, through notify SMS messages. There's going to have to be an increase on that. So I'm going to walk through some of these because I'm conscious that I'm starting to run out of time. I'm going to walk through some examples of this. So one of the things that I think is inevitable, and our customers are getting this now, is the need for people to be able to create digital services and opt in to do things digitally without an email address. So mobile phone only, SMS sign up. So the ability to personalize your council tax services using just a mobile phone number or a social media option, like sign up with Facebook. So by doing that, it means that a person can create an account in seconds. So they enter some details, they enter their mobile number, and then using gov.uk notify, because standards, robot waiters that are able to give us stuff in a standard way is the way you should do everything. Our robot waiter comes back with their 6-digit code, they put in the 6-digit code, and then automatically they're accessing personalized content, or the means to access personalized content. And then going back to our theme of no code, wouldn't it be cool if you could enable any of your workflows or any of your services that a person can submit and then subsequently track? Wouldn't it be cool if you could tell them how it was going and that it was completed using SMS and Facebook Messenger, and maybe WhatsApp coming soon? So as a person builds a process, wouldn't it be great if you could say, I want to send a text message when this moves from A to B, step A to B. So we've got your license application, Mr. Taxi Driver. It's now going to go to the team to look at it. You could send them a custom text message or a WhatsApp message or Facebook Messenger message as that happens. So as the Generation Z, demographic becomes the largest cohort, having your processes doing it now and being able to send messages out through all of these channels with no code is going to become all the more important. And then this next thing is about saying that people shouldn't necessarily have to go to your council services to be able to interact with you. So what you might want to do, or certainly what we're doing, is enabling customers to be able to do things using just the device that they have. So this needs an example or an explanation. So this person has applied for something, and it's the current status is we've received your claim. This is the council's view, and the council's going to add a note to say we still don't have your tenancy agreement, so we can't decide your claim. So, hi Jackie, we still need your tenancy agreement. Many thanks, IEG4 Council. So this is their case management system, and they're working on it. But the really cool thing is, wouldn't it be great if you could ignore that, because I'm running out of time. Wouldn't it be great if you could use Notify services so that when you add notes, that automatically sends a text message to the customer? So we can see here the note that was added by John McMahon at the top line. That's now become a text message to Jackie. Jackie has responded, and that is instantly relayed back. So in this case, they're having a real-time conversation with one another, powered by gov.uk notify robots, waiters, and that interaction is happening between each other. If they set a note as private, then it doesn't get shown. If they say it's sensitive, then the nature of the text message is altered slightly. But the point is, they're not even needing to go into their account to be able to answer these questions. So they're being able to use their messaging platform to be able to message them. And this works with Facebook Messenger as well. So our focus is on no code and citizen empowerment. But most importantly, it's about empowerment. And the other day I watched The Imitation Game, and Alan Turing said this thing, which I actually thought was amazing. And I thought, I'm going to use that quote at some point, because it wasn't mine, but it's really great. And the whole point of no code is saying that basically anybody should be able to do things that you might not believe that they could do. So sometimes it's the people no one imagines anything of who can do the things that no one can imagine. So I dare the people in councils to do more with no code and do things that people can't imagine. Thank you very much. I'm John McMahon. That's been Citizens First. We have a hashtag Citizens First. If you want to follow that, we'll be doing tons of promotion over the autumn. Thank you, Nick. Back to you. Hopefully I'm in time. Yes, it looks like I am. Hopefully that was cool.
That was very, very cool. And we are slightly pushed for time, but what I am going to do is we are obviously going to chat between ourselves, you and I, about the, because obviously we've been recording this to see whether you're happy for it to be released and accessed by all. Obviously you have, as IEG4, a number of webinars at which you're presenting. I'm guessing that possibly if there was maybe a more interactive discussion, I know you're very busy at the moment, but if there was a group of people that maybe wanted to get together and maybe have a discussion around some of the topics that you've talked through today, because you've talked about a lot.
I know.
You know, we could set up a Zoom and we could have more of an interactive discussion. But I mean, there's plenty of food for thought there.
Good.
You obviously be very busy.
Did you like the slides? Did you like the slides, Nick?
I love the slides as always. What a great quote to finish on as well from Mr. Turing. So that was fantastic. So I would like to say to you all, I will be putting this. Obviously, I'll have a quick word with John to make sure everything's okay. But I'll be getting this this video online with all the other videos this evening. I'll have a chat with John and others at IEG4 to see if we can get this discussion group together, which I think would be really useful. Because there was so much in there potentially to spark discussion, but no, it's about getting it out there in the first place, and we will sort that out. I hopefully will see some of you later for the Swindon Transformational Journey session, but stay safe everyone. Thank you very much again, John.
Thank you, Nick. Lovely seeing you. Lovely seeing you, mate. Take it easy, buddy.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye,
see you, everyone.